Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the all-new Winners program with the all-new, greatly improved, extra power host, yours truly, Darrell Waltrip. We continue with our second part of the Neil Bonnett story. If you recall, last week we had divided Neil's life into parts before his April 1st, 1990 wreck and that which followed. We told you about Neil's family, his businesses. You saw his fish farm and his TV career, which all are about the same. Now, let's turn to the time before the accident, Neil Bonnett's racing career. Bonnett, the ultimate hunter and fisherman, has spent his life in Alabama.
What in the world does Darrell Waltrip know about hunting and fishing? And the Alabama game, he thinks that's Richard Petty's vocal group. I've had about it all this as I can take. Give me a sweater. All right, folks, how about this? Is this a real TV host or what? I tell you what, me and the head of the Alabama game, Bobby Allison, will be right back with the real story about Neil Bonnett's life. Bobby, you know, Neil started out down here in Alabama racing around you, and you were his idol back when he was young. What kind of driver was he when he started out?
He was kind of exciting, you know. He ran kind of hard and had some of that excitement. But he came to work for me as a mechanic. And he'd worked for me quite well for quite a while. And one day I said, Neil, what could I do to repay you for the help you've been around here? And he said, sometime when you get a chance, I'd like to drive your car. Well, right after that, I got asked to be in two different places the same night. And so I said, well, I'll take one car and go this way and let Neil take the other car and go that way. And so Neil, did that trip for me, won the race.
Really?
He ran probably 60-some races in a period of about a year and a half, and he won about 40 of them. During that same period of time, I won about 20 of the ones I went to. And, you know, so I had to get kind of concerned that this guy might be taking my ride.
With your own car?
With my own car, yeah.
He was a hard driver, but he was a clean driver. And that's what we wanted him to be. And, you know, he moved on up and showed himself in the Winston Cup, so naturally he was an established member in the Alabama game.
You can take most anybody and win a race now and then, but it's pretty tough to take a driver and win, you know, pretty regular. And Neil's one of them guys you can take and just go out and win any race they are out there.
Yeah, I always liked to run with Neil because you could always trust what Neil was going to do. He was very, very level-headed race car driver, and, you know, anytime you run 200 mile an hour, you like to be around people that are pretty level-headed, and he was really that.
A lot of times we'd have to slow him down, you know, to cool his tires down, and then he would run better, you know. But he knew that, and when it come down, a lot of times, I know a couple of times at Atlanta, he knew that if he cooled his tires down for 3 laps, he could come back and pass the guy. And so he waited till just a few laps to go, and he passed the guy on the last lap.
Neil always drove the win, too. He was aggressive, gave no quarter, very smart, and had an uncanny talent to know where to be at the right place and at the right time.
Neil Bonnett was as tough as they come, and you know, he don't have a neck. It's about that big anyhow, so he never had any fatigue, you know, or anything like that. And places like Rockingham and Dover and places like that, he was awesome. He was, you know, just like Cale Yarborough. The longer the race, the harder the race, the better he run.
Neil Bonnett was fearless, you know. He would, I mean, he said, get the car close, you know, and I'll take it up front. And, you know, I respect him as a gentleman, and he was a great driver.
When Neil was working for my dad several years ago or out of my dad's shop, you could go there any time of the day or night and find him working on his race cars or doing whatever anybody needed for him to do.
Through the years, I've really observed Neil
from?
closely. As a matter of fact,
Wait a minute. Waltrip, you're out of here. Bobby and me's going to handle this deal. We got this under control. Bonnett was born on July 30th, 1946, in Birmingham, Alabama. He was the only son of L.C. Bonnett and Josie Bonnett.
He was like all boys. He was a typical boy, I can tell you that. But he wasn't bad to get in fights, you know, and things like most of them. And he'd laugh when the others would get in one and stand off and laugh at him.
He was a good child. He never got us in trouble. And I tried to pep him and give him all the help I could, anything he wanted to do.
And he always loved to wear his cowboy suits and play with the kids in the yard. And one Christmas, he and a bunch of little boys got a cowboy suit for Christmas, and they wore their cowboy suits and guns to church.
Neil was really involved in anything, come on, in baseball or football. And when he was little, we carried him fishing all the time. And he'd always wanted to do something. And we tried to keep him into something, you know, so to keep him occupied.
His daddy carried him to all the races that he could find.
There was a little dirt track over here on the other side of town, and we'd get up and go early in the day because they didn't have any grandstands, anything to it, no guardrails, and we'd just carry our lunch, park up in the woods, and we'd eat lunch before the race started. And he really enjoyed that. He always liked cars. I bought him a car, and I knew he was treating me pretty rough, but he'd sneak off home and go drag racing with it.
When I met Neil, he was in high school, and he had no aspirations of being a race driver at that time. That kind of came along years later. We used to attend the races after we got married, and he got more and more involved with it. And I think the first race he drove was in 1968.
He was running the cadet division, kind of an amateur division, and it was winning everything. And I had some sportsman cars, and his wheel had kind of run off. It had a couple of wrecks and lost a couple of cars, and he was kind of down, and I was kind of down.
Neil was working as a pipe fitter's apprentice, going to school 2 nights a week to become a pipe fitter.
I'll never forget, I went to work one day, and this was a time I was racing. I'd work during the week, and I'd race on the weekends. And I know you've been down that road part-time racing. I went up on the 20th floor of this building, and the lunch whistle blew. Well, I had my little bitty sack with my bologna sandwich and my cookie in it, you know, and we sat down to eat, so I wrapped one arm around this beam, and I'm trying to eat a sandwich hanging on this beam, and this guy sitting beside me, 60-something years old, and there's 20 foot of air under him, you know, and we're eating, and I'm hanging on this deal, and he says, "Son, you still messing with them race cars?" And I said, "He said, you're going to get hurt one day." And he got 20 foot of air, 20 stories of air under him. I got thinking, this guy's crazy. I got to get out of this business.
Folks, from what we've heard so far, it sounds like that Neil Bonnett would have made a pretty good pipe fitter. Bobby Allison and I will be right back to tell you what went wrong in just a minute.